What's up, everyone? It's Gaijin Gamer here, back with a brand new series called Mid Gaming Kings Raid 2021. And today we'll be on episode 1 discussing some character maintenance as well as the memory archives, the piece of memory that's unlocked when you beat chapter 9-23. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Alrighty, and now first thing I like to do after completing 9-23 is actually level up my characters. And I like to go all the way to, 100 or as close to 100 as I can get. Because what that does for us is that it gives us our unique treasures because they scale with level, as it gives them a lot more HP. And as far as unique weapons go, it gives them a lot more damage. Especially for your priests, they get a lot of healing based off the attack, so it's good to level those up as well. And how I like to do this is I like to use stage 9-9-1 here. And also what I like to do is oftentimes in your inventory, if you haven't used them yet, I think every week you are able to get some of these EXP scrolls right here from the weekly mission. And if you have some of those in your inventory, great. So what I like to do is pop like 2 or 3 or however long you plan on farming. These last for an hour a piece, and so I'll pop those. Another thing I'll do is also in your missions tab right here, if you go into, hold on, it's loading a little slowly for me. If you go into the etc. tab right here and you claim these, it's also going to go ahead and use up to 3 hours worth of this free time that you have. And what this actually does is this actually stacks with those EXP usages in your inventory. So it's important to remember that because you'll be leveling up a lot faster if you use both of those at the same time. So I personally like to do that because it just saves me a lot of time and stamina, as well as it's kind of annoying to reset your inventory all the time if you have to run it quite a few times. So what you can do is just, pop both of these. As you can see, I'll go into my buffs here. We have both of these active right here and right here, and they're going to stack for us when we complete chapter 9-9-1. So yeah, after doing chapter 9-23, I like to level up my heroes to as close as I can to level 100 prior to moving on to chapter 10. Alrighty, and another thing I like to do is actually do a little bit of gear maintenance prior to moving on. Because a lot of times, like if you're just pulling for the random gear, you won't get like the stats that you may need. So I like to get, not only the gear, but I also like to level it up and, awaken it with multiple stars prior to moving on. Because that way it'll just make your experience in chapter 10 a lot less facepalm. And we can do this by going into the raids here, and you can either do the dragon raids and do Black Dragon, but at this stage of the game I wouldn't recommend that because you shouldn't be having too many mana issues at this point. But what I actually recommend is going to the Field Raids tab here, and then actually looking into doing the Dark Legion raid right down here. Because as you can see, we look at the reward list, and it drops some of the better statted support gear in the game. As you can see, the 2 set increases crit damage of all allies by 5%, and also the 4 set increases crit damage of all allies by 8%. And now that's amazing for your DPS that you have, whether it be just your main DPS or if you have a main DPS and sub DPS. It's just going to give them a lot of benefits as far as their damage goes, as well as providing them with just better magic defense, physical defense, and also their accessory that they choose to wear and the orb. And I would recommend just kind of running this if you can, just as much as you can prior to entering chapter 10. I like to have at least 3 stars in all my gear. Sometimes I even go 5 stars, by awakening all my gear. That way, it just makes your experience that much more enjoyable and easier when you step into the next level. Because sometimes your characters tend to get one shot if they don't have all the gear that they need, because they're just lacking those base physical or magic, defense stats, or just the flat HP that they may need to survive some of those attacks. Because Chapter 10 likes to get in your back line and just, go to town on a lot of your priests and, your ranged DPS. So keep that in mind. Also, what I'd like to mention is that I would recommend putting Dark Legion gear on everyone, including your priest as well as your tank, until you're able to get, your Technomagic gear later on in Chapter 10, in doing those raids in Chapter 10. So yeah, it's pretty much good besides anyone except maybe your main DPS. That way they can use a different set. They could cause them to do more damage, essentially. Another feature that I'd like to, just show you real quick is the dispatch battle, and this is a great way to do a mass amount of, raids at one time, and is also good if you don't plan on actively playing the game for a while. I personally like to do this all the time, and it makes rating just a little bit easier. What this allows you to do is after you clear the stage with 3 stars, as you can see, I went ahead and just completed the first stage of Dark Legion right here. What you can then do is you'll have this dispatch battle available to you for the first stage, and then you just fill out the dispatch with your team. You'll hit start battle. And what it's going to do, it's going to simulate your success essentially on completing the missions, and it's going to give you the gear as if you had completed it yourself in a cache after completing it and seeing if you won or lost. I'm not going to lose any of these, so unfortunately I can't show you. But it may have you win some, or it may have you lose some, depending on how confident it is with your team in completing the content. One thing I will say to everyone is that a lot of times, if you're able to get in, like say for example, you can't complete this raid yourself, on stage 1. If you create a raid and have a friend join you, and you're able to then get 3 stars to have that dispatch available to you. A lot of the times, if you're able to level up your characters to 100 and have them on high awakened gear, like the game doesn't always understand that, hey, you might not be able to complete this content. It's just going to look at the overall power level of your heroes, and sometimes I've seen it to where you can't complete the raid by yourself. However, when you do dispatch, it'll then give you 100% just due to the power level of all your characters. So just keep that in mind. One thing to keep in note is that you'll have limited access to your characters while they're dispatched. I went ahead and dispatched my characters, and as you can see, if I try to do anything with their gear, it's just completely unavailable. Like I can't. I'll go to just my Klaus here, and as you can see, my characters are completely grayed out because I can't do anything with any of their gear at this point in time. So just keep that in mind that you won't be able to edit your characters while you're in this dispatch battle mode. Alrighty, and with further ado, we'll kind of move on to the memory archive. Alrighty, and before moving on, just real quick, you can always just check on the progress, if you're still playing the game actively and you have a dispatch battle. By clicking up here, as you can see, I've dispatched to Dark Legion's Raid Stage 1. It has my team, has the percentage that I'm winning or losing, and you can always have the option to discontinue the battle. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and do that because I don't need this gear at this point. And we'll move on to the memory archive here. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can actually dispatch up to 200 battles at a time. It's a great thing to do while you're sleeping. So just something to keep in mind. There's a +10 option that I forgot to mention earlier, that you can go all the way up to 200. It just takes quite a bit of stamina, so just keep that in mind. So next of all, we'll discuss the memory archive, specifically the piece of memory that unlocks after beating Chapter 9-23. And this is where you're going to get characters such as, Fallen Frey, Rebel Klaus, as well as Rahit and Rapine. And these tend to be a little bit tougher. I do recommend that you level up your characters prior to entering some of these, because what you'll do is you'll go through these episodes that they have. You'll unlock the special dungeons. You'll go through the dungeons, with the characters they give you, but then this bonus dungeon over here, you'll actually use your own characters. So just keep that in mind, because it can be a little tough, especially this one for Fallen Frey and Dark Lord Castle, if you don't have a good team going into it. So you'll just kind of go through all of these, and you can do all these at the same time. You can just go into whatever sub-story that you want to go through. You're going to get some bonus goodies. One thing to keep note is when you go through these, it's actually quite awesome. It's just I haven't done them yet, but I need to. You'll send gifts, and then as you can see, I've already claimed, Fallen Frey. This is some, Dark Legion support gear. There's some awesome, stuff that you can get by doing these piece of memories here, and each one of them as well. And as soon as you unlock it, you can do all these at once. Another thing to keep in note of is at the final stage where you're trying to obtain the characters for the additional currency you need, is that it does take 100 stamina per run. So it does take, I think, 50,000 5,000 stamina to fully complete the amount of character shards that you'll need, or complete all of the content to then obtain the characters that you'll want. Another thing is like, as you can see, these are just great rewards. I recommend just doing these and just unlocking these characters because you'll need them potentially for PvP anyways, later down the road. Also, if you're either a physical or magical team, these are great options. Reheat and Repeat for magical, or Rebel Clouds, or Dark Lord Castle for physical teams, and Fallen Fray for every single team. And she's like mandatory, as you can see. I've already done that story. And then some of these stories like Zera, Panisaroni, and Hilda. The characters are able to be obtained prior to doing these, and you won't actually get the characters from doing these. However, these will just give you extra, rewards for the characters. So just keep that in mind. At the end of the day, you're just getting a bunch of bonus goodies from doing these at the cost of 5,000 stamina it takes to complete the, final, let's see here, the final stage where you have to use your own characters and actually do the missions right here, this stage right here. So yeah, this is a great option to do. I highly recommend doing this, especially depending on what team you're running. I think every single player needs to come in and do the Fallen Fray mission for sure, because she's such a key piece of both magical and physical teams. In fact, I think this is mandatory prior to moving on to Chapter 10, as well as then after obtaining her, leveling her up. And if you have any unique weapons or unique treasures, I recommend equipping her out with those as well. Alrighty, and that'll do it for today's video. And I hope you will consider liking this video. And also, if you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing to the channel as well to get daily updates for Kingsraid, as well as the rest of this series, and then my endgame series to follow thereafter. One thing that I will say, the next episode will be on tips and tricks to get through Chapter 10, as well as we'll be covering the Galgoria raid. So without further ado, I'm Gaijin Gamer, signing out.